So, you want to go fuck shit up?
You had me at wanna go fuck.
Let's go!
Welcome back to another Harley Quinn breakdown and the final Harley Quinn breakdown for season 5 with episode 10. Because the series is now over with its final episode, and honestly, they kind of set up a season 6. It's yet to be confirmed if there'll be another one, but we will talk about the possibilities of what might be happening with season 6 at the end of this video. But the episode was fun, having some jokes, having emotional moments, and I think it pretty much worked for wrapping up this season and coming full circle for where it started. We catch up with the group that's in the Daily Planet, having Clayface now being his regular Clayface form rather than being Perry White. Now I'm surprised, last episode I don't remember Lois figuring out that Clayface was Perry White, but they didn't do anything about it, which I was kind of hoping they would have like this joke where they figure out who he really is, Lois would get mad at him, and then he would transform back, but they just kind of skipped over that part, which I felt was a little weird. I mean, it's just a minor plot point, but I thought it would have been fun just seeing Lois's reaction to everything going on. And then we just find out the random fact that some of the reporters are eating each other's faces, which is absolutely crazy. People are just going insane, even though they've only been in this bottled city for maybe a couple days. And King Shark only has Sean, his one kid, but he doesn't seem to have all his other ones, so it makes me wonder if he sent them off to his wife, who might be in Gotham or somewhere else in Metropolis, and he's just chilling with Sean because he can't be left alone because the kid will eat literally anything. However, I will say it's kind of ironic that the downfall of the Luthors are just their kind of narcissistic tendencies, where you have Harley kind of turning them against one another, where she's telling Lex that Lena wants it to be Lenaopolis, but Lex wants it to be Lexopolis for changing the city's name from Metropolis. Like, both these characters just want it to be all about them, and that's all they care about. So that's going to end up making them fight with one another, which I think is just funny. You see them, the siblings are finally working together, but because one wants to be on top at all times, they now fight against one another. Even though they just made up last episode, they still have that tendency to who wants to be the leader because of who came first. And of course it's Lex, because Lex is the older brother. He's the one that never let Lena do whatever she wanted. And now he's doing it all over again, even though he just somewhat made up with her in the previous episode. Like, it was a little too easy for them to be able to get manipulated, because honestly, it makes sense with them just going against their egos. But then we have Frankette, who thinks Ivy just gave her away to Lena, which I think is kind of ironic, because Lena didn't want her whatsoever. She pushed Frankette away, but because she's just a baby, she doesn't understand what's really going on, so she thinks her parents gave her up, which she's making herself feel very upset about it. But then you have Harley's mom saying you have to pretend not to love her so that she gets mad and that she kind of wants your affection after that, which she says worked on Harley, just showing how lovely of a mother that Harley's mom was, and it kind of explains how Harley turned out. And honestly, I love Harley's mom. It's hilarious these last 2 episodes where she's just saying the most outlandish shit, and she's trying to sleep with literally anyone. She wanted to sleep with Lex, and now she wants to sleep with Brainiac. Her husband's now dead, so she wants to find a new life partner with honestly the most evil people, but it's kind of funny just to see how she's jumping from one person to the next. But at the same time, Harley's mom's parenting style isn't working. Ivy can't be that mean mom to make her child try to hit her and get mad at her. She can't do it because she loves Frankette. She's a caring person, and it really shows what kind of person Ivy is as she tries to connect with her daughter. But instead of her making her hate her, she gets her distracted by going to get her to play with the little train set so that her kid could have fun and just kind of be away from the trauma and the dangerous stuff that's about to happen, which is nice to see. It's just Ivy being a good mom and kind of showing what Harley and Ivy are going to be like as parents. Plus, with them having that little train set, it's kind of a callback to the last episode where Lex had his little model train set. He wouldn't let Lena play with it, so Lena got herself one with inside Brainiac's ship so she could play with the train set she always wanted. But speaking of Lena, it also shows in this episode how petty she is, where she wants Lex to apologize for trying to make the city all about him, but he won't, because, you know, they're not going to do that. They don't want to own up to their own mistakes. They don't want to work together. One of them wants to be on top, and neither of them want the other one to be there. So in this moment, she decides to collide Brainiac's ship with Kalu while it self-destructs, which is honestly just an insane plan. She can't get what she wants, so she's going to kill them all just by blowing up the ship, which honestly ties into them being absolutely crazy this season. Lena wants to roll over Metropolis. If she can't have that, no one can. Just showing where the Luthors are in this universe, and also just showing how childish they are, even though they are grown adults. But with all that, we do get the fun moment of Brainiac sulling in the corner, but Harley's mom making him finally realize that nothing can be perfect, that stuff can be a mess, and having him kind of snap in a way where he's realizing that he wasted his whole life trying to make everything perfect, and that having a mess can still be fun, and he's starting to have fun with that realization as they break the glass and fall into the ground. He's realizing that there's more than life than being perfect. I think also just makes him come to a realization that maybe he messed up when he was raising his kid and with his wife, because he always wanted his son to be 100% perfect, and he saw him as a failure when he wasn't. And since he lost his family, he's never realized that that was a mistake. He could have seen the men in a better way. And now he's finally realizing it And this is where his now self-actualization and now end of his story is coming to, as he's now realizing how he needs to save the day. Having him get the Lucers shrunk, Frankette eating them, so now they're inside Frankette, which is just so random, but somehow they're not dead, because at the end of the episode, we see them still alive with inside Frankette. So we'll see if they return, if there is a season 6. But honestly, it's kind of ironic that the whole idea was to make Brainiac realize that they can make a mess, that, you know, life isn't perfect. And that way he's just like, okay, well, we'll let the ship collide and explode because, you know, that's what it is. The whole point of life is a mess. So now he's going to let them all die because of that. And when I was watching this, I was like, bro, that's not what they meant. They did not mean that. Which, when it comes to making a mess, that means nothing can be perfect. Blowing up and dying isn't what it means by becoming a mess. So just kind of ironic to see where his computing brain is kind of putting these realizations together and not really understanding actual emotions. But that leads into this really fun scene with Harley just trying to lie her way out of it again. Like, it never works. Every time she really tries to lie to the characters, they tend to find out the truth and that she's actually not telling them it. Which was just her trying to explain that the end of the play with them not exploding and dying on Callooh, which, you know, obviously wasn't true because they never knew that was going to happen, but she tries to convince him nonetheless. Having it that he needs to speak with Bane, the person who wrote the play back a few episodes ago when we saw him and Clayface working on it, trying to come up with the play, and he of course does not help whatsoever. Bane is back to his classic messing everything up as he tries to tell Brainiac that it was all about a disaster and that it was just tragedy, which isn't helping their case at all. And I love how Harley just pushes Brainiac out of the way and she starts yelling at Bane to be like, no, this is how the story ends. And he's like, no, it doesn't. It's like, no, Bane, shut up, you're not helping us. And then Bane tries to sing the ending and make it up himself, but then he fails miserably as Harley takes over and Brainiac does not trust them. It's gonna let him blow up anyways, which just leads into them always messing things up. Like, they always do something wrong that causes absolute chaos. And actually in this episode there was somewhat consequences where they could actually all die for once. And of course, you know, they never ended up dying, but they were definitely leading into that someone wasn't going to make it out if you're alive. Surprisingly, in a show where a lot of people end up dying in the earlier seasons, I'm surprised no one really died this season. However, that leads into Brainiac snapping once again. This character has been losing his mind over and over during the season. When we first met him, we saw that he's been talking to a dead monkey. Then we saw his whole family die. Like, we've just seen a bunch of things tragically happen to this character as he tries to go through life and deal with the loss of his loved ones after he went away on his mission and not being able to say he loved them. Which then leads into this moment where Coco comes back, his dead son comes back, his dead wife comes back, and Harley is like, oh shit, he's talking to the dead monkey again, which is just funny to watch how they're interacting with Brainiac, going into his memory as he cherishes the memories he once had for his family. Having him go and tell his son he's proud of him, just like how he wanted to when he went on his mission to get the shrinking ray. He was like, I'll tell him when I get back, and then he gets back and they're all dead and was never able to do that. Finally able to tell his family he loved them because he finally realizes that even though nothing's ever perfect, he can still love them for who they were. And I think it's just kind of that kind of full moment where he realizes that he messed up. He spent all this time wasting it, regretting what he did, and then he finally got to realize what he could have done or what he should have done and actually, you know, be there for his family. And I find it hilarious that Coco was the one warning him about Harley. It's kind of like his empathy was unlocked, where after realizing that he can tell his family he loves them and everything, his family, his kind of inner voice is telling him that he should save Harley and the others. You know, if he's gonna die, they shouldn't have to as well. And that's where he lets them escape. And I love how they're kind of escaping with a few of the bottled cities, and they left a bunch in there. So a lot of civilizations just died because it blew up on the planet, but they saved a handful. And I'm assuming those handful could be like Tamaran, Ron, I can't remember how to pronounce it right now, but Lobo's planet and Kandor. So I feel like those are the main ones that might have survived, the more notable ones. So with that, when they release them, we do see some of those bigger alien species from the comics. But with Brainiac flying into Callooh, it is him kind of ending his own life, but in a way going into the afterlife, if there is one for him, where he gets to see his family once again and be with them finally after all the years of traveling through space, bottling up cities. But with Harley and Ivy escaping, they end up getting blasted with all the pieces of the planet that just exploded, which ends up destroying their ship. But we had really like emotional moments during this part. I really like the part where Ivy's telling Frankette that she loves her, and then Frankette says, I love you. So just like this really touching moment of Ivy being this mom and having her kid care about her. But then it kind of just starts to go into chaos with the game being ripped apart, people losing oxygen. And I find it hilarious that Clayface is like, I thought Harley was invincible because of all the seasons that she survived all these massive events that should have been killing all these people, especially with someone who doesn't have superpowers. So I thought that was a really funny moment because he's also like, this is a shitty way to find out she's not. And I love how it plays into what's been happening from the previous seasons with all the bigger events that have almost costed them their lives. But then we have Frankette making air pockets, which I'm like, oh crap, they survived. This is like the MacGuffin part of the episode where Frankette's the one that's going to be able to save them. And of course, it only lasts like a few seconds because then they all end up dying anyways, or they all end up almost dying anyways, because the air pockets don't last long, and Frank is just a baby, so she can't make a bunch. And then we get a nice little callback to the first episode of the season where Ivy's asking Harley what she wants for dinner, and she says pizza, which is what they ate in the first episode when they were in their apartment and decided to go to Metropolis. And then the whole ship blows up, but finally Superman arrives and he can somehow make a bubble of air, make them be able to breathe, and transport them back to Earth. I don't remember him being able to do this in the comics, so I think it's kind of funny how they did that. It was just a way to make him save them without a ship. But the fun part is last season, Harley was the one to save Superman, where this season, Superman was the one to save Harley. So the roles have reversed, where he's becoming the hero once again, where he's able to save his city, his love, and his friends. So it's just like a nice fun moment to see him arrive. And I love how Harley's like, finally you arrive, just having Superman finally come in to save the day like he's supposed to. So at the end of the day, Harley and Ivy were able to save the day, just kind of like how all the other seasons Harley saves the day. In reality, at the very end, Superman came to the rescue like Superman normally does, which I think is fun. You know, Harley and Ivy can always save the day when it comes to their series, but it is nice to have those little other factors in there because they can't always do it by themselves. So it's just great to kind of add in those other heroes whenever it works for the story. But then we end up skipping to 1 week later. Harley and Ivy are back at the apartment they were renting, but this time they own it because they stole it from Cy Borgman. Cy Borgman is one of those characters we've seen in the previous seasons. He was the old man cyborg who eventually got turned into an AI, and now they own this apartment. So I like that little reference to a character we haven't seen in a bit. And we got a bunch of other little fun things too, like Lena and Lex being stuck in Frankette's stomach. Like I said before, I have no idea how they're still alive, and it feels like they're probably going to escape because they don't have the shrink ray anymore, so they'll have to either come up with a new one or someone's going to have to turn them back into regular sized humans. We have a little fun moment where Goldilocks wants to date Sean. Kind of weird because she's a girl and he's a shark, but she also did come from a storybook where she was with the three bears. Clayface pretends to be Batman as he says, "I'm Batman." Kind of the reference to the Christopher Nolan films where we have "I'm Batman" all the time. So it's just like a fun little moment of him playing around and Bruce telling him he's not Batman. But we also have Bruce and Joker hanging out like they're besties. So just fun to see where they are. And one of the things I've noticed here too is that we're in a new moment where we have more friends for Harley and Ivy. Like Bruce is now more part of it. Now Joker's part of the group, where before, you know, he was that terrible ex that Harley left and there was a lot more conflict with him, but now he's kind of grown and become a better character as now they're somewhat friends. Then we have Lois being there as well, getting a phone call from Clark, who surprisingly isn't there. And she's calling him needy for wanting him to come over, which is kind of a swap from last episode where she's like, well, now that I can't get access to Clark, I need him. Where before she was like, oh, I don't need Clark. I don't need to call him. I'm independent. But because she couldn't reach him, that freaked her out. But now that he can reach her again, she's acting like, oh, I don't need him. He's too clingy, blah, blah, blah. So just kind of flip-flopping because of her kind of toxicity that she has in the storyline. But then we have a nice moment of Frank's picture being there with a little glass of alcohol, just in memorial of him. So it's like this really nice moment. And I like, you know, dealing with his past and having a little moment to remember who he was and how they loved him. But it does suck that he's no longer in the story. And if they do make it season 6, I wonder how quickly they're going to age up Frankette to get her to be more of a teenager or an adult rather than just a baby. Now, Ivy got Superman to move Metropolis closer to Gotham. So maybe they got rid of the river that's separating them. And now they're just like butted up right next to each other. So now it seems that the two cities, the light and the dark one, are right next to each other, which doesn't seem like the best move because of the villains in Gotham who might be trickling into Metropolis because, well, now they can. And I'm curious to see, you know, if they do make a season 6, how they're going to kind of tie into more of that storyline. And they also reference how Harley's going to be the psychiatrist that's going to be dealing with the people who stuck in the bottled city because they're going to need to help work through the trauma of them being stuck for who knows how long there. It feels like one of the ones stuck in the corner is Kandor. Like Kandor is probably in there, and like I said before, it's probably Kandor, Tamaran, Lobo's planet, also Thanagar, and Ran. So all these different planets that we saw in the earlier part of the season, or probably the cities that got locked up there, which means they could put other characters on these planets like Starfire on Tamaran, Hawkman, Hawkgirl on Thanagar, Lobo on his planet, and then Adam Strange on his planet, stuff like that to kind of add into it. And I'm very curious to see how they're going to be dealing with that, if they deal with that, if they get a season 6. Because the way they set this up right now is that they had Metropolis and Gotham put next to each other. Harley and Ivy are now living in Gotham once again. They have the bottled cities from those various planets, and they set up Harley going to be their psychiatrist to help them out. So that definitely feels like stuff they would be setting up for a season 6 if they were going to have a season 6. However, they also made it so this felt like a nice bookend for the series. Now, where they now live together and have this really nice place together where they're living more happily. They have their friends. They might have lost Frank, but they have Frankette now. And at the end of the episode, they talk about how they're going to go wreak havoc in Gotham City. It's a kind of like their little send-off of where they're going to go cause chaos. They're going to go have fun. And they have their friend, and they also have all their friends in the final. So it feels like a series final where they're ending the series, but also potential for being season 6, which we could be getting that, but who knows at this moment. I felt like they're probably going to cancel it. I feel like they're probably going to go into new stuff because of the DCU, but we will see. We'll see for sure because it is a fun show. Like, there are a lot of times where it's not that good, where it's good, and it's like not perfect, but it is fun at times, and I do enjoy it. Also, last but not least, I forgot to mention that we also have the Superman logo that shows up at the end of the episode with the Superman Museum, which is like this full circle moment because the first episode, they went to the Superman Museum opening, and now we get to see it again in the final. So just a nice little reference there, and honestly, just to wrap up the season. But let me know, how did you feel about this season? How did you like the final episode? And do you think there's going to be a season 6? We can talk theories down in the comments for what might be happening there. But that's it for this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot, and you get to stay up to date with all my Marvel, DC, and anime breakdowns. And speaking of Marvel breakdowns, I currently have my Daredevil ones happening right now, so make sure you go check those out if you're into Daredevil. I'll have it linked at the end of this video, and we'll be doing those until the series wraps up by episode 9. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later when it's time to break down more DC, Marvel, and anime projects.